Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are talking about whether the so-called good girls in Until Dawn are actually bad. So, look, we know that this is all subjective, right? But generally, as a sweeping statement, Emily and Jess are the female characters that take a lot of the heat from the community. You know, obviously they have the bitch fight together. Emily, she can treat Matt like shit, and Jess, I guess you could say she's quite forward, but equally, I think that can put people up the wrong way when she's with Mike in the woods. But we want to take a look at the other girls in this, and we want to put some evidence forward as to why they might be more bad than people should otherwise consider them to be. So, mate, where do you want to start?
I think we can go maybe chronological with Hannah, the so-called victim of the game, because I think I've always had this positive view of Hannah, but since we've made this channel, and particularly a certain video we made a couple of months back about whether Mike should be forgiven, we had a lot of interesting comments, didn't we? And I think it kind of like awoke something in us where it opened our eyes, didn't it?
It did, and it was basically about her role in the whole prank, wasn't it? I can't remember who it was that put the comment in. I've not got the video up at the minute, but maybe we can get a picture up now. But what they were basically saying is that actually Hannah is like this spoiled rich kid who knew that Mike was taken, and yet she still went there to go with him, considering they're like all in this big friendship group, and that is like morally corrupt in itself. And it's only because that she went on and died that people feel sorry for her. And to be honest, I do think that has some merit.
I do, because this whole Until Dawn premise, right, the whole game is basically about this death, right, where we all feel sorry for Hannah. They all kind of round up, and it's kind of almost like a memorial type thing to commemorate and pay respects to, the sisters that passed away. And we see her as an absolute victim, right? And by any means, the prank is a horrible idea. We're not forgiving the prank. We're not saying the prank's a good thing, right? But what we are saying is that Hannah didn't do herself any favors. And, Mike, Jess, Emily, they shouldn't have, done the prank and attacked her that way. It's a really mean-spirited prank. However, you kind of put yourself, in the other shoes there of Hannah actually tried to undress and take a taken person. Now, I get there's all these perhaps counter arguments like, oh, she's shy, she's clearly obsessed with him, so a lot of people would do the same thing. But after hearing that comment, Hannah isn't as innocent as I once thought, despite the fact, she's dead now.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? If she stayed alive, do you think people would look on Hannah less fondly than they do now? Because I know, surely I certainly would. Well, I mean, at least, until we got up to this debate, I'd say that actually I don't look on her as fondly as I used to. But I do think the death is almost like the clincher, and maybe even when you're playing the body of the game, you're looking round through a dead person's things, aren't you? When you're finding her diary, you've got the hidden photo of Mike, and you've got things written with love hearts and with the letter M in it and stuff. So we're almost geared to feel sorry for this girl, but actually, she is definitely a guilty party, because if Mike wasn't part of the prank and he went along with it, they would have full on shagged upstairs with Emily without even knowing it. So I think that there is something to be said there, mate.
Yeah, because another thing is if Hannah never died and it was it was only Beth that died, and then they were kind of commemorating her, and if Hannah was to go back to the party and she's still within the friend group, if you're Emily or Jess, you're sort of sat there thinking, if you're in a relationship with a guy, you're sat there thinking this girl's got no boundaries, no limits, she can maybe move on to this my boyfriend. So I don't think there would be a positive reception for her if she was still alive. But because she died, it almost puts this kind of automatic, obituary type blanket over the bad things she's done, right? And I know it's quite dark to say, but it is, like you mentioned, it certainly has merit to that point as well, lad. And the other thing that we kind of really have to mention is that, yeah, I get she's emotional, a bad prank's been played on her, but, you know, her running outside in the snow causes Beth to chase after her, and that leads to Beth dying as well, right?
Oh.
So, like, Beth's death, like, the blood is sort of on her hands as well, mate.
It's very true. Yeah. I mean, why did she... I mean, I know, obviously, sort of, we know it's a game sort of thing, but, like, why did she have to run so far into the woods and the trees and stuff? Like, because as the player, like, we know it's a tutorial thing, but speaking from, like, a realistic story point of view, you know, you've got to run, like, down several pathways, you've got to, like, drop down on a couple of times, you pass some deer, I think, or isn't it elk, I think. There's, like, several things that happen. Like, why did she have to go so far away? Why not just go outside and, you know, maybe go somewhere in the trees, but not that far? So, yeah, like, she literally led them, you know, to a point, and they lived there, didn't they? Or is that a holiday home? I'm assuming that's where the Washingtons live.
Yeah, I mean, they all have, like, bedrooms with a lot of property in there, so I'm assuming they live there, or they're that rich that they live there, and they also live somewhere else as well, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's a big house as well. She could have ran somewhere inside.
Yeah, so, like, again, like, she has indirectly caused the death of her sister as well. And I mean, I know that this next point is a bit touch and go, but we also did say that she did eat her sister.
Yeah, cannibalism is not good.
But that is called cannibalism, my dear children, and is in fact frowned upon in most societies.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a wink and a nudge with that one, but because obviously, you know, she's hungry and, like, you know, fortunately none of us have been in that situation. So, like, yeah, there's definitely question marks over Hannah. So, shall we move on to Sam next, mate?
Yeah, okay, yeah, let's go for Sam.
So the first point that we've got here, and I think this is the one that immediately comes to my mind, is right at the end of the game, where you're looking at the interview tape with Sam, and she's talking to the police, and then she recommends that they then go down into the mines after seeing all the horrors, you know, that she's experienced. She's now recommending more people to go down there to go and investigate. And, you know, I just feel that that's a little bit, that is very misguided on her part, which is surprising for such a character that's so level-headed throughout the entire game, and, you know, I think a lot of people's favourite character as well. So that's not exactly a good thing, is it?
No, gosh, no. I mean, you know, I watch a lot of horror films, and often the final girl will get to the end, and, you know, whether it's like the monster's dead or disappears, and then the cops show up, and then, you know, the girl's back in reality. And I guess it is kind of a funny thing, you know, you kind of are left with the choice, like, do you lie about what's happened because no one's going to believe that, oh yeah, there's Wendigos on this fucking mountain? But, like, a lot of final girls will sort of just want to get away from the horror. They're just like, yeah, get me away from here. But yeah, she straight up says, like, you go down there and, you know, you have to see it to believe it. And behold, like, two cops do end up getting down there. And if Josh is still alive at the end of the game, 2 cops die. And obviously, wider impact, those cops are probably dads who have, like, families and stuff. And yet, Sam, you know, you've just, you know, there's some poor girl out there who's, like, waiting for a dad to come home. That's not going to happen because you've just sent them down to the mine where Josh is eating them. So, yeah, well done, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. It's become Josh's dinner. But yeah, I mean, what else, lad? What other ideas do you think there is for Sam that we can share?
Yeah, okay, so this is a bit of a light one, but we all know the whole funny thing about Until Dawn is that she spends basically, chapter 3 to 5, which is probably, about 2 hours long. She spends 2 hours in a bathtub, right? Now, I would say that is arguably rude. Like, we live on different sides of the country, lad, but whenever we meet up for, an Airbnb getaway with our mate, a little uni reunion, if we was to meet up and we have, like, limited time together, whether it's, like, sort of 2 or 3 days or whatever, if I, like, straight up saw you, said hello, and then got in a bathtub for 2 hours, I don't know, I think that's a bit rude. I don't know, like, I get, like, it's probably really cold out there, she wants to, like, unwind and relax a little bit, but I don't know, like, I don't know. Am I wrong to think that that's probably a little rude to just instantly, instead of like reuniting and chatting to everyone, maybe like asking Josh how he feels and stuff, that you've just bucked off to the bath?
No, I completely agree with you. I find it, like, as a quick side note, I find it funny. I mean, I know there was a bit of bickering and stuff, that they all come their separate ways to like converge and meet at this lodge, only for them to immediately separate again. And go off.
Yeah.
And it does seem, and obviously, yeah, in this instance, it's Sam in the bathtub. I mean, I like a bath as much as the next man, right? But not to have a 2-hour bath. Like, don't you get fucking bored in there or something? Like, it's I don't know. It's just a weird thing. And like you say, like the occasion that they're there for, it's, you know, to sort of commemorate, you know, the loss of their 2 friends and such. So yeah, like to be in a bar for 2 hours. Again, we know this is a bit of a silly point because it's a video game, but fuck it, Sam, you're a rude bitch.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, another point I want to mention, lad, maybe it's another slightly weak one, but I do think it is relevant to mention, is I would say, I know it's a difficult position to be in, but she does a pretty poor job of warning Hannah about the prank. We do know at the start that Sam's clearly aware this prank's going to go down. And yeah, she's nice because she's not a part of it. She disagrees with it. But if I put myself in her shoes, I'd be like, no, this prank is a terrible idea. It cannot happen. I'd like either warn her about what's to go down. The more likely thing I would do is storm into the bedroom before Hannah got there and says, no, you guys are not doing this right now. And I would stay in that room to stop Hannah from getting in, or I'd warn her. But because she kind of goes out and then comes back in and then just goes, oh, it's all a mistake, and then leaves Hannah to run out. I don't know about you, lad. I just think that's a bit of a weak job.
Yeah, and you know what? I stand to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure there's a point where you play as Sam in, like, you know, when you go back to the lodge and she's like, I think she's going around Hannah's room. And I think she finds a bit of paper that she lifts up and she sees Mike's photo, or it might be something else. And she's like, oh, damn, Hannah, crushing hard. Something like that. And I'm like, mate, like you're speaking ill of the dead. Like, and also as well, just the fact that like she's having a pop at some dead person. And she's like, fucking hell. Like, I know it's obviously, you know, bad that the girl, you know, went to get with Mike. But at the same time, like, the girl had a crush.
Yeah, like, I know we're playing devil's advocate a lot with this. We do love Sam, but yeah, like, you know, it's pretty bad that. Another thing we mentioned as well, and this kind of happens on 2 occasions, where when she's in the group at a really kind of like peril, dangerous moment, she does tend to run ahead, and she's clearly the most athletic. We've seen her rock climbing abilities. 2 ones that come to mind are when she runs ahead, leaving Ashley behind, and then she could potentially die with the trapdoor death. And then there's the other one where she goes with Mike to fetch Josh to get the car or the cable keys. And then, you know, she climbs out to warn the others, leaving Mike with Josh to go through, like, you know, the waters in the basically heart of the Wendigo, you know, cave, right? Now, you could argue that, again, is another inconsiderate thing. I know, like, Until Dawn typically follows the horror tropes of splitting the group up, which is always like a terrible idea, right? So like they're paying homage to like those 80s kind of 90s like horror films. I completely get that. That is kind of like a writing choice. But, you know, like Josh can die, Ashley can die. Her separating herself, running ahead from the group, does sort of leave the group in danger, and I think it is a point that kind of like you could highlight.
Also as well, again, we know that this is a player choice, but right at the end. I mean, I did this, didn't I? I killed off Mike and Emily in the explosion in the lodge right at the end, because I didn't realise you had to hide several times from the Wendigo. I just ran straight for that light switch, flicked it, bang, whole place goes up, killing 2 people. So yeah, almost like we said, whenever Sam seems to run off, it leaves like a trail of destruction in her wake, and it's usually people's lives.
Oh, no, for sure. No, I completely agree. And like Sam, obviously a great character. Yeah, she's not the angel a lot of people think.
Hey, and also as well, she can also snoop in Chris's bag at the start.
You're a bully.
Why am I?
You're a thief.
I mean, mate, shall we move on to Ashley next?
Yeah, you know what? Ashley's an interesting one. I've always voiced this, but like, it's been nearly a decade of Until Dawn, and Ashley is the character in terms of writing that like has gone up the highest in my opinion. I think she's so incredibly well written, and we all know that like a choice happens with Chris, and then Ashley can dramatically change. Like, you know, it's like a kind of fork in the road where she can remain that same goody shy character, or she could have that really dark ending. And I've always said that if I was a director of a film, that's the ending I would write. If I could write one ending, I would have the dark Ashley ending. I think it's so incredible that, like, you know, you've got the two sort of prissy popular girls, you've got the level-headed athletic Sam. Ashley's almost like in the middle where she's just the shy girl, and you think like that could just end there, but there's so many layers to her, and I find it incredible. But yeah, like, a big part of what we're going to be talking about with Ashley here, right, mate, is that a lot of her dark choices, to potentially argue why she is a bad person, are very player choice heavy, right? So she doesn't have to be dark, but she can be, and I think it needs to be highlighted still, because despite the fact it's our choice, it still is coming from, you know, Ashley, right? Who obviously is thinking these things and does feel these things. It's her choosing to do them. So I think we've got every merit to say, right, that, I mean, the biggest one of them all is that she can lock Chris out and, you know, get him killed, right? And that's a pretty big one.
Which is dark. Yeah. Because the thing is, right, maybe like this is me going a bit OTT, like backing up Chris here. You know, if you play as Chris and you go to shoot Ashley, right? A lot of people on face value, and maybe rightly so, would be like, God, yeah, that's bad, right? But maybe you could spin the narrative. Maybe Chris decided to shoot Ashley because he didn't want her to endure the buzzsaw coming down on her head. Maybe he thought that was the more kinder way for her to go, because they both had a buzzsaw above their head. Maybe he thought, I'll use the bullet on her, so that way she's out the picture, and then I'm the one that takes the buzzsaw. I don't know, maybe I'm going a bit too far with that. So then, like, if that is the case, and then she's then locking him out, it's, I don't know, like, you could, again, I mean, it's dark either way, but it just sort of adds that sort of hint of sadness to Chris's death. I don't know what your opinion is on that, mate.
No, I mean, I completely agree. Like, maybe it was like a mercy kill, you know, you could definitely voice it that way. I think as well, though, and like, we've extensively spoke about like how it's kind of a bit bullshit that Chris was in these sort of scenarios and had to make these decisions in the first place. We've got a video which I'll leave on screen now where we've extensively spoke about, you know, maybe Until Dawn should have had Mike and Jess in those scenarios rather than Chris and Ashley, right? But I think a big thing that we all need to remember is that, you know, 7 of the 8 characters, because we're excluding the traitor in the midst, right, didn't ask for this night to happen. It's like, you know, a few hours ago, these kids basically are thinking that they're just having a fun night at a lodge, but now instead, you know, like, Chris has to make these brutal life and death decisions that he wasn't mentally prepped for. And like, I think it's pretty harsh to hold that against him. And at the end of the day, he's a bit of a shy, nervous kid. You know, he's not very sure of himself. He made a decision. So to lock him out, yeah, sure, maybe you have the right to be pissed at him. But like, maybe just don't get with him rather than fucking lock him out and kill him, you know? That is brutal. It's very brutal.
It does seem a bit extreme. But also as well, like, the fact that she can withhold so much information throughout Until Dawn as well. I mean, we've got a couple examples down here. We'll go through this one first. The fact that she can withhold information about the Wendigo, which can ultimately lead to the death of another character in Emily. So, like, again, it's almost like Ashley's like responsible for like 2 deaths. One, you got to say directly. I mean, I know she doesn't actually kill Chris, but she effectively kills him by the Wendigo. But again, with this one, with like not telling the group that the bite doesn't mean an infection, so we know that obviously Emily's not going to turn. If she withholds that, it can lead to a situation where Mike shoots Emily. So again, that's really dark.
Another thing she withholds, right, mate, is when we first meet her, when she sort of looks through the goggles and sort of sees you know, Mike hugging Emily, potentially, you know, some cheating going on, we don't know. And Matt kind of comes and says, oh, what's through there? And yeah, it's a player choice. You can let Matt see it, or you can withhold that. And I don't know, like, if I was Matt and then I learnt that Ashley held that from me, yeah, I don't think I'd be best pleased.
So if you was Ashley, you would let your mate look through the binoculars at it, yeah?
When I first played it, when I was a lot younger, I didn't. But in hindsight, I would. I'm like, look, mate, you're going to have to look at this because I don't know, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, like, you know, cheating, I just fucking hate it. I'm not a fan of it, you know. I mean, who would be? But, yeah, I don't know. Just, like, I think that's bad. I feel like if there's information where someone has the right to know, they need to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with you. I mean, to play devil's advocate, it must be a difficult thing, right? Because it's not like they're doing anything. They're just sort of talking and chatting. I think because what really clinches it is because we know that they do have a history of being in a relationship and it was less than a year ago, then it should sort of prompt you to show Matt what's going on, and then at least he can then make his mind up for himself. If he then thinks that's a bit sus, he can then address it. But by not showing him, you're potentially like leaving one of your sort of friends, you know, innocent friends in this whole thing, in a situation, yeah, where they might or might not be getting cheated on. That's not a very good sign of a friend, is it? So yeah, like again, Ashley, like early doors, showing potentially showing a bit of a dark streak.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. I mean, the thing we mentioned at the start, right? Jess and Emily, they're clearly a lot more popular, a lot more impatient, a little bit more prissy. But, you know, they're just forthright with their opinions, you know, like they wear their heart on their sleeves. What you see is what you get. That is somewhat an admirable trait. Maybe you could argue that no one's, you know, a good person, but at least Emily and Jess aren't afraid to sort of hide that. So maybe they are a lot more admirable than Hannah, Ashley, or Sam lad.
Yeah, almost like that expression, better the devil you know. You know, they're Jess and Emily are so in your face. They say what they think. Whereas you've got the likes of Ashley who put on this sort of like, I say put on, but like, you know, they've got this sort of shy demeanour about her, you know, the whole cute thing. But really, she can stab you in the back, sort of thing.
Agreed, because I do think if the shoe was on the other foot, I can't see Chris doing it to Ashley. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, also, like, a final point for Ashley as well is the fact that she can barge past Emily in the lodge, right? At the very end.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, she can. It's a bit of a sort of Easter egg that we've mentioned in our analysis series. But yeah, if you do get the dark ending, she barges past Emily, while if like you have a good Ashley ending, Emily will get out the lodge before Ashley. So yeah, like she almost like when she goes dark, she goes completely dark. And it's almost like you could argue the most selfish person will leave the lodge first, right? So by getting the dark ending, she arguably becomes a worse person than Emily, lad.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, we've got one more girl here, Beth. We genuinely can't think of anything for Beth. We think Beth is Golden Girl, essentially, in Until Dawn. Obviously, that she doesn't really have that much of an arc. She just looks at a couple of things and then she goes out to save her sister. But there really isn't anything to tackle with her. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I find it so interesting because, like I've said at the top, we said that Jess and Emily are seen as the girls, like especially when you're picking your characters in the Dr. Hill scene. You know, it might be her and Jess that are the final two that you have to pick between. And I think that's fair to say that that is quite a common thing. But as we've come up with already, I think there are, you know, things in amongst the quote good girls that you know, that can be probed at and maybe need to be taken consideration more. I don't know. Having said all of that though, I feel like my de facto position is that I still like all of them.
Yeah, I do. Like, this is just a bit of a fun video where we're just, you know, doing critical thinking, playing devil's advocate, and kind of exploring the sort of the depths that some fans might not see or look into, you know, and we're just sort of bringing those points to light. And a lot of those points were fan-led, and we just wanted to further discuss them. So thank you very much for bringing those to light, guys. Obviously, one thing I want to say is that if this video does reach 10,000 likes, we will give $5,000 to one of you at random. So thank you very much for tuning in.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
And there we go, guys. So thank you very much for watching this video. We'll see you in the comments and see you in the next video.
Bye, guys. Take care.